All right, let's see. We already have a dislike. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Are we live? I never know. I never know if I'm live. Okay, it says waiting for Farid responds on my phone. Ma adri ya akhi. I know it says we're live, but like, you never know. You never know. Assalamu alaikum, guys. Are we live? Oh, okay. Now it's actually loading. All right. Hello, Habibna. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to a new video. I'm joined once again by perhaps my favorite guest, Abdullah Moataz, and today we're going to be discussing a subject. And alhamdulillah, Millat Ibrahim isn't going to be banning or mass banning everyone because you're my guest today. He was threatening the folks. He was threatening me, and then in the comments before we started this. Okay, so we're going to be discussing objectivity and hadith methodology. And yeah, you're the person, Yahi, you're the person for this. I had some thoughts in my mind before doing this. I was going to go solo, and then you know, you came to mind, and I thought this would be a fun discussion to have. I'm sure we both have different things to toss at each other. I have some questions for you as well, and I'm sure we're gonna enjoy doing this.
Definitely. Thank you, Habibna.
I love the hair, by the way. I love the hair.
Thank you.
I haven't seen you for a while. Okay, so where should we start? Where should we start? Now, one of the most it's not even controversial, but one of the subjects that's often discussed when it comes to objectivity and hadith methodology is the topic of narrating from innovators. And here's the whole idea for those of you that aren't aware of how that works. Basically, we have an isnad, a chain of narrators to the Prophet ﷺ or to a specific event, and basically the main focus of these, what we mainly focus on is the reliability of the narrators, and the reliability basically consists of their truthfulness and their proficiency when it comes to memorizing and reporting the narration. And then there's this aspect that's not discussed as much. It isn't the main focus, however, it is brought up, and you'll find a lot of discussion about it in classical books of hadith. And that topic is narrating from innovators. So Abdullah, please do share some thoughts on that if you want to give a bit more of a background before we jump into it.
Sure. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وإمام المتقين سيدنا وحبيبنا وشفيعنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. يا سريع الغوث غوثا منك يدركني سريعا يهزم العسرى ويأتي بالذي أرجو جميعا. So the topic of رواية عن المبتدع, to transmit from heretics, is a topic that a lot of things have been said about, yet it actually lacks good and proper tahrir and research to come to a final position on it. The reality of the matter is that there is a fact about the scholars of hadith that you have to take into consideration, which is that many scholars of hadith spoke as muhaddithun, as hadith critics and people that are concerned with the actual historicity of hadith, and on the other hand, a lot of them also spoke as fuqaha, and a lot of them also spoke as scholars of aqidah and du'at and whatnot. And be that as it may, you have a mixture of sayings. When it comes to scholars of hadith, when they're talking about mubtadi'ah, heretics, they can be talking about them as a muhaddith, and they can also be talking about them as a scholar of aqidah and someone who's a da'i who wants to prevent the masses from being affected by what they think is heresy and whatnot. And for this reason, you have to read this, Imam Ahmad, for example, after the Mihna, he refused and advised people to not transmit from certain transmitters, right? And these are transmitters that he considered to be ai beforehand, like someone like Yahya ibn Ma'in, right? Yahya ibn Ma'in all of a sudden didn't forget hadith, right? And Imam Ahmad doesn't think that. But Imam Ahmad was concerned with the stance he took in the Mihna, and as a result, he thought he should be shunned. Whether Imam Ahmad was right or wrong is entirely irrelevant. Similar cases you find is that this, by the way, differentiation is very clear. And you see this differentiation with Abu Hatim al-Razi when he's talking about Shayban ibn Farrukh, who's a reliable transmitter, yet he was a Qadari. And not to get into who Qadariya are or whatever, but there was several heresies going around during that day. Qadar was one of them. Tajahum, i'tizal, tashayyu', the opinion of the Khawarij and whatnot. These are all some of those heresies. And anyway, so this particular transmitter was a Qadari. And Ibn Abi Hatim, in his book Al-Jarh wa Ta'dil, quotes Abu Zur'a saying he's Saduq, right? Which is a praise. It's he's endorsing him. And
Right.
Abu Hatim doesn't comment on him being a good transmitter or not. He simply says he used to hold heretical beliefs on Qadar. And
Okay.
people then...
Abu Zur'a said he's Saduq?
Abu Zur'a said Saduq.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And Abu Hatim didn't comment on this, right? And I don't think Abu Hatim disagrees, and which is why he says what he says at the end. He says, he didn't comment, he was like, on this, but he says, اضطر الناس إليه. He used to hold heretical beliefs, and people obviously avoided him, yet towards the end of his life, he was needed. Right. Now, if he was someone who is not a reliable transmitter, he would not have been needed like that. Yet he was needed because he was reliable. So they advise people to keep away from the transmitter. This says nothing of, is his transmission acceptable? Because these are two entirely different issues.
So what's the reason? So what's the reason apart from... So you gave a good example with Imam Ahmed, but what would... generally, what would the reasons be? For example, Malik was very harsh against innovators, if I'm not mistaken. What was his reason for telling people to not narrate from innovators? Doesn't that have to do with their lying? Doesn't that have to do with the strength of their memories?
Not at all. And I don't think anyone I don't think anyone actually ever even thought of this until people became confused about this now. You know what I mean? I don't think like this was ever a source of confusion for An-Nasa'i or Abu Dawood or anyone. But there's a great hadith critic by the name of Al-Juzajani, and who's accused of being a Nasibi, and he's not, simply because Nasibism doesn't exist. But he's not a Nasibi, but he's accused of it. Okay. And
you're gonna get me a lot of heat for saying that. May Allah ma'alish. Let's get back into this.
This isn't the first time I've gotten heat or something. Some of the people that follow you are very big fans of me, so
I'm sure. Yeah, go on.
So Al-Juzajani, in the introduction to his book Ahwal al-Rijal, he comments on this phenomenon. He says that not every heretic is a liar, nor is every liar a heretic, yet suffice lying lying is sufficient to heresy. That's what he says. Very nice.
Please elaborate on that.
Not every heretic is a liar. Not every heretic is a liar. Not every liar is a heretic. Yet sufficient to heresy is lying.
Right. I have his book here somewhere. Just give me a sec. Give me a sec. Oh, here it is. And subhanallah, I was actually going to quote something by him. Here's the book. It's quite small, but mashallah, it's really useful. Definitely. And here's something I found really interesting. So he says, Ismail bin Aban al-Warraq. He's quoting, or excuse me, he's sharing his opinion on this narrator. Now, Ismail bin Aban al-Warraq is a Shi'i. And now al-Juzajani, you'd expect him to be extremely harsh against every Shi'i because, again, as you said, he was accused of being a Nasibi. And he says, كَانَ مَائِلًا عَنِ الْحَقِّ. All right? He was someone who was... but basically, he's taking a jab, saying that he has gone astray from the truth. However, he did not lie in hadith, which, of course, suggests his reliability in al-Juzajani's eyes, even though this was a Shi'i and al-Juzajani is accused of being a Nasibi. It's a really interesting example. Oh, yeah, please don't let me cut you off. Please carry on.
No, that's a great example. And I like to use al-Juzajani because he's considered to be a Nasibi, even though, as I said, Nawasib don't exist. Like, and when I say that, I mean that if we define Nasibism as someone who hates Ali and Ahl Bayt tadayyunan, right? They religiously dislike and hate Ahl Bayt. I don't think this exists in Ummah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I don't think this exists at all.
So when they refer to Nawasib as Nawasib, what would that mean? What's the accusation about?
Well, I don't think it's even that common, but it's usually people that preferred Muawiyah, and
Okay.
it's a matter of dunya.
Right.
Hadith ibn Uthman, I believe it's Hadith ibn Uthman. He was also accused of being a Nasibi, but he couldn't be a Nasibi because Nasibism doesn't exist. And people lied about Hadith ibn Uthman during his life. People said like he used to curse Ali ibn Abi Talib 70 times in the morning and 70 times at night, which normal sane people do not do. No one has the time for that. And he told me there's a lie. I don't do that. But did he like Ali ibn Abi Talib? No, he didn't. And the reason why is a matter of dunya. Because his grandfathers, I believe, were killed.
Okay, killed in what? Killed in what?
They were killed by the armies of Ali ibn Abi Talib.
Okay.
So
you're saying the hatred is due to a matter of dunya. It's not due to a hatred due to Ali's religion or his beliefs or anything along those lines.
Yeah, look at it like this, bro. Hadith ibn Uthman is somebody who has met Sahaba, right? Hadith ibn Uthman met at least one Sahabi as a young kid. He met Abdullah bin Busr. So picture this: you're Hadith, and you're very Muslim, right? You've met Tabi'in. When you're a kid, you met a Sahabi, and even Hadith comments on it how he met this Sahabi, Abdullah bin Busr, and he was young. لم يكن يعقل العلم, right? He didn't know knowledge and didn't understand what type of questions you're supposed to ask. But this is significant. There's a Sahabi. So he just asked him, was the Prophet an old man? Right? You can picture it. And this is Sahih al-Bukhari. And so Abdullah bin Busr he responded to him. Anyways, so you're Hadith ibn Uthman. You've met a Sahabi. And he's like, oh, he's pretty cool. He didn't kill my grandfather. You know what I mean? And you met other people who also met Sahaba who were pretty cool. And those Sahaba didn't also kill his grandfather and weren't the cause of his grandfather's dying. And then he sees another person who's a Sahabi who was the cause of his grandfather's deaths. It's like not surprising that you wouldn't be their biggest fan. Like this is human nature.
Right.
It's not strange. I guess,
I understand. And it's going to lead us to. It's going to lead us to a statement by Ibn Hajar. Ibn Hajar mentions that. He mentions something along the lines of, I can't remember who, Aban bin Taghlib's biography, I'm guessing. He mentions something like that. He speaks about Nawasib in general. And he says something along that lines. He says that Nawasib, I need to dig it up because I don't want to botch the quote. But yeah, like I do understand where you're coming from. I think I need to look into it, inshallah. But it's an
Yeah.
interesting theory.
Here's the thing: people are so like I was talking to a Shia person the other day, and not the other day, a few months ago. He's like al Rafidi too. Like he's not like you're just he's al Rafidi. And I was speaking to him, and I told him, I said, in the end of the day, I think we look at things differently. I said, you look at
Mm.
history in a very judgmental, theologically charged manner, and I don't. I think people are people in the end of the day. And if you look at, like, I don't want to go down a rabbit's hole, but since we're already at the at the edge of this, we might as well delve into it. So, like for example, having hate for Ali versus hate of the Ansar, right?
Mm. Mm.
There is القدر المشترك بين الأنصار إنهم مسلمون, right? The unifying factor when you think of someone who hates the Ansar, the unifying factor about the Ansar is that they are Muslims who supported the Prophet and they are virtuous. If you
Right.
hate them as a whole, you cannot be a
Right.
Muslim because there's
Right.
only one thing that they all have in common, right?
Right.
Which is why you have the authentic hadith about hating the Ansar.
Mm.
Then you have, the inauthentic hadith about hating Ali ibn Abi Talib, which is about لا يحبني إلا مؤمن ولا يبغضني إلا منافق. No one likes me except a mu'min, and no one hates me except a munafiq. And Ali ibn Abi Talib, for example, he's just a person, one person. You could hate him and be a kafir for hating him. Let's say you hate the fact he's a Muslim. You could be a kafir for hating him. But you could hate him for a multitude of reasons. And even if you're wrong, it's still not doesn't make you a kafir. Because there's many reasons you could hate somebody. Right? And it goes
Yeah.
down to
Yeah.
that. People are people.
I think we need to link to your article on the subject because that's an interesting one. Yeah, inshallah, I'll link it down when we're done with this. I want to carry on. I want to share a couple more of these because I think these are extremely important about the statements of the muhaddithin when it comes to Shias and relying on Shi'i narrators. So here's one right here. Okay, this is a beautiful one. Okay, so it's Daraqutni. So this is from one of his books of Su'alat, Dar al-Faruq al-Hadithiyya, which you love. And he's asked about Adi bin Thabit, right? And that's who we were just discussing a few seconds ago. And Daraqutni, do you know what Daraqutni says about him?
I do not recall.
Okay, so he says, ثقة إلا أنه كان رافضيا غاليا فيه.
Nice.
Wow. All right. So he says that Adi bin Thabit is trustworthy even though he was an extreme Rafidi. It's really interesting. So once again, this is a perfect example. Ad-Daraqutni relying on someone who he sees as an extreme innovator. However, because he's truthful, he could simply he had to state it and he had to accept his reports. I think I have one more I want to share. All right. Yeah, so this is a similar one. This is from Fath al-Bari, Ibn Hajar. He speaks about Khalid al-Qatawani, and he says he's quoting Salih Jazara. I love Salih Jazara, and if you remember the story, please do share the story of why his name is Salih Jazara. Or you don't want to risk it. You want to risk it.
I don't remember it exactly. It's there's I think هو صح like he صح في اسم, right? And then he mispronounced something. I think it was Kharza as Jazara and whatnot. They call him Salih Jazara. But he has many good stories, and everyone should read his biography from Siyar Alam Nubala. He's hilarious.
Yeah.
He
a bit over the top from time to time, but yeah, he was a funny guy.
There's a story of him when a random person came to his lecture. He was dictating hadith. He's a person who's clearly not involved in hadith. So the guy asked him. He said after the dictation of hadith finished, he asked, who is the sheikh, man al-sheikh al-musma', like who's the person, who's the sheikh that was dictating hadith. And so he wanted to like see if the guy actually knew anything, or just some random person. He was like, Wathilat ibn Asqa. And the person went and wrote it down.
Massive troll of the times. So he says, Sahih Jazara says about Khalid, he says, ثقة, trustworthy, إلا أنه كان متهما بالغلو في التشيع. He was trustworthy, however, he was accused of being an extreme Shi'i. So yeah, yani, subhanAllah, just proves the point that even though they saw these people as extreme Shi'is, as long as they were reliable, as long as they were truthful, as long as they had strong memory, they relied upon them. The most oft-quoted example is the Ibn Khuzaymah example, who speaks about Ya'qub, Abbad bin Ya'qub, and that's a crazy example. Abbad bin Ya'qub was really, really extreme. And Ibn Khuzaymah says something like, it was narrated to us by the trustworthy in his narrations, but he who was accused in his opinion. It sounds a lot more, it sounds a lot harsher in Arabic, but yeah, something along those lines. And you're telling me that he may have taken that back due to something.
Yeah, I didn't have a chance to pull up the quote, but I do, if my memory serves me correctly, he did taraja an hada.
Yeah,
not the underlying theory behind it, but the specific example.
Yes, of course. And I would agree. I would definitely agree, because Abbad bin Ya'qub, I recall him having some crazy stuff, some crazy reports, and it seemed like he was living a double life. And inshallah, I'll link to that article. I wrote an article about Abbad, and inshallah, I'll link to that in the description below. I hate when I do this, because every time I do one of these things, I got to link stuff in the description. But yeah, that's how it is. So now I want to use this to link to another topic, because there's this assumption that it's a crazy assumption, but there's this assumption that criticizing Sahaba, is that me or is that you? I'm guessing that's you. Yeah, criticizing Sahaba is a reason for weakening a narrator. And if someone criticizes a companion, therefore, he can no longer be relied upon. That's an argument that's being brought forward. What are your thoughts on
that? I mean, I think these are the type of arguments that are brought up by people that are A, polemicists, B, apologists. And I say that because one of the unifying factors of most people involved in polemics or apologetics is that they are extremely ignorant and not well read, besides being emotionally and spiritually unstable. But that's another that's for another thing. Anyways, so I mean, it's just not true. Like, it's just not true. Al-Waqi' yarudduhu, just read books of Jarh wa Ta'deel. I mean, there's what did Yahya ibn Ma'in said about somebody. He said, لم يكن له استقامة بعد النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم.
Right. Oh, we gotta get rid of Yahya?
Apparently. Even Ad-Daraqutni says this. Even Ad-Daraqutni says this. Yani Ad-Daraqutni says this about some transmitters that are from the young Sahaba who maybe just saw the Prophet a few times or whatever.
Ibn Abdul Bar, I guess, said that Al-Walid was a fasiq. I guess we need to burn the books of Ibn Abdul Bar now.
Apparently, yeah.
Yeah.
And even the fact that quote unquote Nawasib are accepted, ya akhi, Ali ibn Abi Talib is a Sahabi, we love him.
You have to explain that. Please explain that in detail. I don't want people to come out of this video not getting what you just pointed out.
Okay, so one of the problems when it comes to discussions on these topics is that we grant too many assumptions. We grant people. So a Shi'i, for example, we grant them a monopoly over Ali. But we love Ali too. So a person who dislikes Ali or hates Ali or whatever, or criticizes Ali, is not looked upon in good light, even if their hate is just dunya, which is their hate is just over dunya, right? He's still not looked upon in good light, right? Tashayyu' and Shia do not have a monopoly over Ali, right? So we don't look good upon them in what they do that we disagree upon, right? Yet we still accept it, just as we accept Shi'is who talk about Uthman, right? And then you have Khawarij who don't like Uthman or Ali.
Yeah.
Right? This is the reality of it.
That's please carry on.
No, so and that's just it. You know,
Yeah.
we
I think
need
Khawarij
to learn to not grant assumptions. Like, okay, they have like a Shi'i will say, well, you guys make tawfiq of Nawasib, you guys endorse reliability of Nawasib, which shows you're biased. Wait, why am I biased? We like Ali ibn Abi Talib too. It's only biased if we accept your worldview, which is wrong and not historical.
Yeah, yeah. I want to reiterate this for the kids in the back of the room. If you're saying that Ahl Sunnah reject narrators because of adalat al-Sahaba, because we believe that all the companions are just, then naturally we would have to reject all Nawasib as well, because the Nawasib are those that attacked Ali, right? So there's a contradiction there. Naturally, we accept people that have criticized the Sahaba as long as they are truthful, as long as they have they're proficient in narrating reports. Nawasib, Shia, and Khawarij. And I think Khawarij are such a beautiful example, because the Khawarij, even though we have major issues with Khawarij, major issues with Khawarij. However, Khawarij are more truthful than pretty much anyone. I think, I can't remember who it was that said this. Maybe it was a Dhahabi. Was it Abu Dawood?
It might
that
be
said that he's never met or he's never heard of a Khariji that lied. It was something like that. Are you familiar with the quote? I'm gonna look this up.
I think there's something from Abu Dawood about it. I think there's something from Abu Dawood.
It's a very okay. Here, I think it's. I'm close. Give me a sec.
By the way, speaking of Abu Dawood, though.
Yeah.
Didn't his ancestors fight alongside Ali and Siffin?
I don't know. I'm not aware. I can't recall.
I believe this is true. I think this is correct, and yet he has no problem in finding hadiths to be very reliable. Even though Hadith's grandfathers were killed fighting on the opposite side.
Right. Interesting. Very interesting. It is Abu Dawood. You're correct. And he says that there's no one among the people of innovation, the people of desires, that are more authentic in Hadith than the Khawarij. It's mashallah, yakhi. You know who says what, yakhi. Barakallah fiqh. I want to move on to share this really, really beautiful quote by Dhahabi, and yani, this pretty much sums up everything, or not everything, but a lot of it. Okay, so here, and this is in Mizan al-I'tidal, he's speaking about Aban bin Taghlib, all right, and what he does is he quotes or he mentions these scholars that have declared Aban to be trustworthy. He mentions Ahmad bin Hanbal, Yahya bin Ma'in, Abu Hatim al-Razi, and then he says, and Ibn Adi mentioned him and said that he is, he was an extreme Shi'i. And then he says, how is it possible for someone, what if someone says, how is it possible for someone to be declared a trustworthy, or how can one be a trustworthy innovator at the same time be trustworthy in being just and being proficient with reports? And he mentions that there are two examples of bid'ah, one that's a lesser bid'ah and one that's a greater bid'ah. And then he says, and here's the thing, what I love about this statement by Dhahabi is it's so objective, akhi. He says that a lower level of bid'ah is ghulu fi tashayyu'. Extreme Shi'ism is a low level, he says this, or just Shi'ism without being extreme. And he says that this can be found a lot in the Tabi'een and those that came after them, and they were people, okay, of religiosity, piety, and truth. All right, that's the main thing here. All right, and truth. And he says, and if we were to reject these people, then we'd be missing out on a lot of narrations. And there's a major mafsada in this. There's a major loss in this. And then he says, and then there's the major innovation, which is full out rafd, all right, and major ghulu in rafd. And it includes attacking Abu Bakr and Umar and calling people onto that. And then he says that we should not be relying upon them. And now here's what he says. This is really interesting. He says, and this is هذا هو الشاهد, this is the main point. He says, I can't recall anyone, and by the way, Dhahabi will disagree with people will disagree with Dhahabi on this, but I want you to look at the main idea here. He says that no one comes to my mind from this sort of person that's truthful. However, rather, lying is their shi'ar, their shi'ar. Help me out here.
Defining quality of them.
Hello. Defining quality and taqiyya and nifaq. All right. Now, taqiyya is the main word here. Now that's because naturally, objectively speaking, if a person is performing taqiyya and he's lying to you, then it's only natural to consider him a liar and to not rely upon him for hadith. I mean, how is this not objective? If someone was to reject a Rafidi because he performs taqiyya, well, how is that objectionable? How is that a problem? If the Shi'i is truthful, we'll accept him. And the ulama have accepted them. And they have actually accepted a Rafidi narrator if he's truthful. Rafidi narrator, he's truthful. However, if he is applying taqiyya, khalas. How would you accept someone who lies within his deen, for his religion? So yeah, that's a very important quote I felt needed to be shared.
No, I think that's very good. And I think that there's this underlying philosophy that kind of links all of this together, which is, yes, the major figures of Ahlul Hadith, the Hadith critics, they did have strong theological opinions. This is not something that I think anyone is going to deny. They generally had more or less uniform, monolithic, strong theological opinions.
Yeah.
Yet, with all of that, they recognize something that is true, which is the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ is a shared memory of the Muslims. And there is not a group, as right as one may think they are, there is not a group that has a monopoly over it. There is no group that has a monopoly over the hadith of the Prophet. Which is why Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Qattani, I believe, said, if you were to reject the hadith of the people of Basra for Qadr and the people of Kufa for Tashayyu', the books of hadith would be destroyed. I can think that this person is misunderstanding hadith and Quran, misunderstanding historical realities, right? Yet how can I prevent them from their shared memory of the prophetic legacy, provided that they are not dishonest and that they try their utmost to accurately retain and transmit information? This is a shared memory in the end of the day.
Right.
And this is what underlines it. And you see it perfectly underlined when some of the huffaz, and these mentioned by, I believe, I forget who has mentioned it, ya Allah. But I mentioned this in my ebook, In Defense of Hadith Method, which Farid will put a link for.
Definitely,
Um,
definitely. I'll have
uh,
as a top link, inshallah.
which is that I believe they were going to hear from Abdul Warith ibn Sa'id, and who was a Qadari,
Hmm.
and they would come to write and learn hadith from him. The second that the iqamah was made and he would lead them in salah, they would specifically leave so they wouldn't pray behind him.
Hmm.
They refused to pray behind this person. And
Hmm.
yet they would go to his house to learn hadith from him. Forget that. Ma'bad al-Juhani, who invented the bid'ah of qadr, as per the hadith of Jibreel in Sahih Muslim, right? أول
Hmm.
من قال بالقدر معبد الجهني. And that's why Yahya ibn Ya'mar and Humayd ibn Abdurrahman al-Himyari, they left, either making Umrah or Hajj, to ask Ibn Umar. And then Ibn Umar gave them the hadith of Jibreel, right? This
Yeah.
Ma'bad al-Juhani, who is infamous for this heresy, and who's only known to most people as being a heretic for this heresy, Abu Hatim al-Razi, who is considered to be, by your average hadith student, if you ask him Abu Hatim, he thinks he's too strict. He says Ma'bad al-Juhani is Saduq. He endorsed his reliability, even though he's infamous for being a heretic. That's what people know him as. He's not
Right.
known as Ma'bad the Faqih, Ma'bad the Hadith transmitter, even though he has fiqh and he has fatawa. Actually, in I believe in, where is it? Al-Manasik by Ibn Abi Aruba, there is a good nas with the tahqiq of Sheikh Amir. There is a
Aywa.
good nas of, I think, a fatwa of Ma'bad al-Juhani.
Okay.
But he was a person of fiqh and hadith. Yeah, he had this heresy, and he's
Right.
only known now for his heresy. Abu Hatim
Subhanallah.
said he's Saduq. So
Subhanallah.
this is what underlines it. Ahlul Hadith believe they are right in theology. Yet they do at the same time do not believe that they have a monopoly on the transmission of the prophetic traditions, because it is a shared memory between all Muslims.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Now let's focus on how is this objective for the kids in the back of the class. Um, yeah. So subhanallah, people always say, I hear this a lot online. History is written by the winners, and subhanallah, Ahl Sunnah, we're the winners. We're the friggin' winners. However, we recorded the history of non-Sunnis. We recorded the history as told by Abu Makhnaf. Abu Makhnaf, who is seen as an extreme Shi'i, who narrated the events of Karbala, and it's seen as the most orthodox Shi'i view of the events. Ahl Sunnah preserved that. And they preserved the views and the reports of the innovators. So yeah, I just find it really interesting. Any thoughts you want to share on this subject?
Yeah, well, so for example, the ebook I wrote, In Defense of Hadith Method, the whole idea behind it was I wanted to show that the method used by the scholars of Hadith can produce impartial, or it does produce impartial results.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't like using the word objectivity, because it's a word that is now adopted by polemicists and apologists who they have a YouTube channel and a Twitter handle, and
Uh-oh.
then they start talking about objectivity and facts and logic and whatnot. And they've watched a few
Uh,
YouTube videos,
uh-oh.
maybe if they're smart, they've read a few books. Yani.
Uh,
Uh, so they're like objectivity and facts and logic.
oh
And
God.
so,
Am I gonna have to change the title of this? The title of this video is Objectivity in Hadith Method, right?
well, it's so they can come in and then learn that they should learn. so, so the idea of it is to show that Hadith method produces impartial results. This is not to say that people are not affected by biases. This is a claim that no one has made. Not a single hadith scholar has ever made this claim. In fact, they are the first people to recognize that it is possible that biases happen and do occur both in practice and in theory. And you can read it. I think the first chapter of In Defense of Hadith Method is about this. And that has actually, so we don't claim that they're without bias, but we think that they are the least affected by their biases. And if someone is affected by their biases, not all of them are going to be affected by it. And this is to protect the whole method, the method as a whole, right?
Right.
And it produces impartial results. And we can see this. And in the ebook, I gave examples of this, how it produces impartial results. Yeah, and you see, for example, they hate Qadariyah, they hate Shia, they hate, Murji'ah. And there's ahadith that are transmitted by Sunnis that are fabricated, that talk bad about Murji'ah, Qadariyah, and others.
Nice.
And yet, they consider them all inauthentic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though, by the way, and I mentioned this in the book, does Abu Hatim al-Razi have a problem in believing that the Prophet can prophesize about the future? He doesn't. Yani picture, this the way we think, right? Abu Hatim could have said, this proves that I was right about Qadariyah. They're bad people, and it shows that this is a miracle of the Prophet because he prophesied them. He's a Muslim, ya akhi, he believes in prophecies. Yet the fact he believes in prophecies and the fact that he hates Qadariyah and think that they're misguided does not allow him to authenticate something that he doesn't think is true. Even if he thinks that the general meaning is true, which Qadariyah are bad, for example, or Murji'ah are bad, or this are bad, right?
Yeah.
So we can see the impartial results. How many ahadith of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq in the Fadail of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq are considered weak?
Oh, there's quite a bunch, yeah.
Plenty of them. And Fadail of Umar and all these things. Fadail of Surah.
My favorite example is Hadith al-Manzila, which goes something along the lines of you are to me like Harun is to Musa. Rasulullah ﷺ tells Ali, you are to me like Harun was to Musa. Now, there is a very interesting variation in which Rasulullah ﷺ says to Abu Bakr and Umar, you are to me like Harun was to Musa. Okay, so the narrator switched out Abu Bakr and Umar, put them in, and got rid of Ali. And what did the Muhaddithin do? They declared this a fabrication, and they attacked the guy who narrated this, and they accused him of lying. As opposed to the hadith that says about Ali, you are to me what Harun was to Musa. They regarded that as authentic. They regarded that as a reliable hadith, and it's in the authentic hadith collections. So just because they're not Shi'is, just because they preferred Abu Bakr and Umar more, doesn't mean they're going to accept this hadith. No, they declared it to be a fabrication, and it's in the trash of our history.
Yeah. Yahi, the Quran. Forget Sahaba and Prophet, the Quran.
Yeah.
There is a hadith transmitted about the virtues of certain surahs. The Muhaddithun rejected the majority of them for being inauthentic. Do they not believe that the Quran is the book of Allah? Do they not believe that it's virtuous? Did they hate reciting Quran? No, they didn't. And yet, this did not allow them to accept it. Yahi, if you look at in the Ilal of Ibn Abi Hatim, they have a chapter dedicated to criticizing a hadith that are transmitted about Dala'il al-Nubuwah. In the Ilal of Ibn Abi Hatim.
Subhanallah. Subhanallah. Ajib. Ajib. And you know, this leads me to a thought, because there's this accusation that Bani Umayyah fabricated so many hadith, hundreds of thousands of hadith, pro-Umawi hadith, pro-Muawiyah hadith, and whatnot. And where is that book? I have that thick volume. Actually, was it 3 volumes of the merits of Muawiyah, authentic merits of Muawiyah? Wait, no such thing exists. There is no that. Like, according to the scholars of hadith, there is either one authentic hadith in praise of Muawiyah or none. That's the difference of opinion. Can you imagine? Can you imagine someone claiming this? That there were factories, that's the word they use. Hadith factories were made in order to fill the world with the merits of Muawiyah. لا يا أخي ما في. None of that ever happened. If we'd have more than 1 or 0, if that's what happened. Subhanallah.
The Mu'tazili Al-Qadi Abdul Jabbar in Tathbit Dalail al-Nubuwah, he talks about a similar issue to this, about how as much as the governments would like and try to get involved in fabrication of ahadith and to change events, they don't have the ability to. He has a whole portion of this, and I think I sent this to you from Al-Qadi Abdul Jabbar.
Okay. I can't recall reading it.
I'll send it to you. You can share it on Twitter and translate it. It's actually very nice because he says this to a few certain ideas. A very nice thing. He's Mu'tazili too. Great guy.
MashaAllah. Allah barak
fiik. The book is great. Tathbit Dalail al-Nubuwah is a good book.
Of course. Beautiful book. Anyone who knows Arabic needs to read that book. One of my favorites. Guys, okay, so before wrapping things up, I want to wrap this up before we open up for Q&A. So any final thoughts on this? Oh, just really quickly, what about scholars differing in small matters of methodology? So, for example, Imam Malik was harsh against innovators in general, while other muhaddithin, let's say al-Bukhari, was more lenient when it came to the narrations of innovators. How would we deal with that? Isn't that a major conflict?
No. Look at Imam Malik with Ikrimah. How he hated Ikrimah.
Okay. You're ruining my example. You're ruining my... Okay. let's say hypothetically you have 2 scholars. I'm not going to use names so you don't refute me. Okay, I think you're breaking up. Are you breaking up? Guys, is it fine or did it break up? Hello? Guys, is it fine or... Okay, I think we lost Abdullah. Abdullah, if you can hear this, get back on, Yahi. All right, my bad, guys. But I'm assuming you guys can hear me fine. So if you have any questions, please do share. Inshallah, we'll get to at least I'll share my thoughts until Abdullah gets back. Okay, he's coming. Hella. We miss you there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't miss you.
So I don't want to give any specific examples so that you don't get a chance to refute me. But let's say you have 2 muhaddithin that differ when it comes to minor, because generally the major matters they all agree on. They all agree that the narrators that you rely on have to be reliable, right? They all agree that the narrator can't be a liar. They all agree that the narration has to be connected. However, However, what are you going to do with these minor differences? So matters of let's say bid'ah, and you have okay. So here's one. You cannot take from a mubtadi' who calls to his bid'ah, or you cannot take from a mubtadi' who narrates something in favor of his bid'ah, in favor of his innovation.
Well, so I think that these are two interesting issues. So the first one is da'i ila bid'atih. This clearly has nothing to do with reliability. It's about the theological thing, and I don't want people to be misguided, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to riwayat al-rawi al-mubtadi' fima yaqawi bid'atah.
So the first thing is, so I just want to reiterate. So the first thing has nothing to do with the reliability of the narrator himself, but rather it's about giving him status, perhaps, or being affected by him. Okay.
Yeah. And the second one has to do with is more of a scare, and it has more to do with individual ahadith and possibilities of mistakes occurring to them. And it's unfair to classify this as an exception. So in the minds of some people, they think that, okay, well, everyone simply, it's fine, and then you have al-mubtadi'ah, if they transmit something in support of their bid'ah, then blah, 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 right?
Okay, let's do that one more time slowly with using English words, please. I don't want people to miss out on this.
Okay, so people seem to think that this is an exception. The transmission of the heretic in support of his heresy. The way the muhaddithun deal with this is something that is an exception, and it's not. What it is related to the issue of riwayah bil ma'na, which is paraphrasing transmission, because they do the same thing for fuqaha, and they have something they call ahadeeth al-fuqaha, and they criticize transmitters for transmitting something in the way they understood it, which happens to be using, for example, fiqhi terms, or they understand it in light of a madhab, right? This applies to everything. The only reason they mention it specifically about al-mubtadi' is because there's something very obvious that you could be out on the look for, because it's easier to detect with a mubtadi'. Otherwise, they do this for Sunnis, right?
How
they
so?
In terms of ahadith al-fuqaha, they will notice that these terms are not terms used by the Prophet.
Right, of course.
You have the hadith of Jibril. Imam Muslim talks about how some transmitters that are murji'ah transmitted it as, instead of mal Islam, they said ma shara'i' al-Islam, right? And it's to take away amal from iman.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Understood.
So they talked about this specific issue. The idea is that for the mubtadi', you have some very clear bias that you need to make sure that you look at, and that's it. The same applies. In reality, this goes back to ilal. It's an issue of illah. That's what it is. Some people go ahead.
I would like to point out that I haven't seen this being abused. This rule exists in books of hadith, no doubt, but I haven't seen this rule being abused by early scholars of hadith. I wouldn't even say a handful of this being used. Examples that come to mind. But usually, when the narrator is an innovator and he's narrating something in favor of his innovation, it's usually, from what I've seen, it's usually classified as reliable. I can't really recall too many examples. Maybe like one example, but even then, it's due to, as you know, the report is rejected due to an addition in the report by that narrator, which goes back to your example of narrating the hadith according to the meaning and not to verbatim. So it's mentioned as if this rule is mentioned as if it's evidence for this great bias, when in reality it isn't, because of the lack of usage of this rule itself.
Yeah, like you said, it could be a mudraj, right? Something that's interpolated into the text, and this happens in hatta fiqh reports. Look at the hadith of Habib bin Abi Thabit from Ibn Umar: "لا تمنعوا إماء الله مساجد الله وبيوتهن خير لهن." Do not prevent the female slaves of Allah from the houses of Allah, and their houses are better for them, right, to pray in. Their houses are better for them, in my opinion. This is a interpolation, idraj, from Habib bin Abi Thabit, who is a faqih from Kufa, who is explaining the hadith in the way he understood it in light of the fiqh of the people of Kufa. Because the way that it's transmitted in Hijaz by the sons of Ibn Umar and the main students of Ibn Umar and the scholars of Hijaz like Mujahid is without وَبُيُوتُهُنَّ خَيْرٌ لَهُنَّ. Right?
Okay. Interesting.
So you look at the fact that it's only a faqih from Kufa that's transmitting this edition. And this is pretty much a sole Kufan fiqh position. Is this just a coincidence that he's happening to transmit it? No. What he's doing is, him as a faqih, because people during this time, يُحَدِّثُونَ تَدَيُّنًا, they transmit religiously. the hadith, al-haraka al-hadithiyya, the hadith movement did not begin then, right? Where hadith was sought out as its own field for being hadith. And you wanted the Ali isnads, and you wanted to find the good nusakh, the manuscripts, and meet certain people. Then they transmitted tadayyunan. So when he transmitted the hadith, he transmitted it as he considers to be the proper understanding of it. And then, so what a muhaddith will do is he goes and looks and compares and does his historical study, and then comes up with, okay, this portion of it is something that he interpolated as an explanation because he's a Kufan faqih. And that's it. It's not like it's not this get out of jail free card. Like, you have this ahadith that says that Ali should have been the first Khalifa. Sorry, I can't accept it from you. You're a mubtadi'. It's not like this. You know what I mean?
Right.
My get out of jail free card. No, it's a matter of ilal. Right.
Barakallah fiqh. Now let's tie this to the previous point I was mentioning really fast, inshallah. Let's not take too long with this. So they have these different opinions in regards to these intricate matters. Doesn't the existence of these minor differences of opinion suggest that the methodology, hadith methodology as a whole, is flawed?
Yeah, you caught us. We're wasting our time. No, I think that people disagree. Here's one thing: when you're looking at the statements of the early scholars of hadith, you sometimes see that they are describing one transmitter with lots of contradictory statements. And on further inspection, you realize that you have no idea what you're talking about, and they're actually all saying the same thing. So let me give you an example of it. I wrote about this on the Arabic Ahl Hadith forum when I was criticizing the idea of mutashaddidun. This taqsim al-thulathi. So you have mutashaddidun, mutasahilun, mutawassitun, people that are strict, lenient, and in the middle, or fair. And so, for example, you have a person like Yahya ibn Abdullah ibn Bukayr, right? The transmitter from Layth ibn Sa'd. When you look at the fact that his ahadith are found in both al-Bukhari and Muslim, which just suggests he's the pinnacle of reliability, and then you look at Abu Hatim saying he's salih, which means his hadith should be written, but he's not used as a hujjah by himself, you may picture that they are at entirely different opinions. Whereas when you look down actually into the reality of it, you see that Yahya ibn Abdullah ibn Bukayr is not used by himself in al-Bukhari. He's either transmitting from a Layth, and he's the best student of a Layth, or when he's transmitting from other people, al-Bukhari and others present corroborating proofs for his ahadith.
Understood.
So when you look at it, you see at first two entirely contradicting opinions. And then when you study it, you realize that no, in reality, يدورون في فلك واحد. It revolves around the same idea. And a lot of difference is like that. Now, this does not say that there's no difference.
Okay. Yes. So a lot of it can be reconciled. However, at times, they really do conflict with one another, and that's just the nature of how these things occur. I was speaking to Abu Rashid, the Sheikh Sa'd al-Shanfa, about this. And he said he mentioned this really interesting analogy when speaking of Sunni hadith versus Shi'i hadith. He said, and I told him I'm going to steal this because it's, but I gave him I referred it to him. So I'm being fair here. It's a beautiful analogy. He says the Sunni hadith system is like this major hospital. This major hospital that has a lot of professional doctors, and they got the nurses, and they got the equipment, and it's very organized and high tech and all of that. And 100 people get operated on each day. And yes, once in a while you will have someone passing away. It's only natural. Doesn't mean that the hospital's bad, right? However, you leave the hospital, You leave the hospital and you're going out on the street and you find a herbalist. You find a herbalist on the street, and he's trying to sell you the garlic and the onion and these herbs and whatnot. And he says, you see that those guys, they're these doctors are always conflicting with one another, and they have different diagnoses for each guy, and sometimes you have people dying. Yeah, come here and enjoy my herbs. So and he says that's the Shi'i hadith system, the herbalist. So I think it's a quite a funny analogy.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. And I think
Yeah.
here's the thing. I think there should be a takeaway for as you refer to the kids in the back of the class.
You what?
Um,
The ones that don't pay attention much.
yeah, the kids that just started making YouTube videos and having a Twitter handle and talking about issues that they don't fully understand, but and I'm not being facetious or anything. Do you not think that God will throw you into hell for discussing issues and causing deviations that are way beyond you? Like in reality. And this applies to Sunnis and Shias and everyone. People will be thrown into hell for showing off. What you're doing is much worse than being just showing off. You are an embarrassment to Islam, and you are causing doubts amongst Muslims, and you are creating a mess. It's not a joke. It's not like I can make a YouTube account and a Twitter, and now obviously I've read a few books and listened to a few lectures. I can speak. You are being held accountable. It's just genuinely not a joke. Like people seem to think like, oh, I'm doing something good or whatever, and you're not.
All right. Barakallah fik, jazakallah khairan. I don't know if are you open to taking some Q&A or not really? It's your call.
It depends on what type of questions they are.
Yeah,
I like the loaded questions.
I've never had much success with questions, but yalla guys, give us what you got. Last time I was on, someone asked me if pork was halal. I had to end the stream.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, at least they didn't ask you if snorting cocaine in Ramadan would break your fast.
Uh-huh. Okay, so here's one. Farid, why don't you make an IG, Instagram? The answer is because I'm not a girl. Next question.
That's sexist.
Next question. Oh, wait. Yeah, folks, hadith related questions, please. Okay, this is some of these. They're just gonna lead us into an issue. So let's. Here you go. This one's for you. Zumam says, Abu Yahya said, he's a Mu'tazili, great guy. سؤالات فريدي لا بيحيى. All right, folks, come on. I haven't read this, have you? Is Bayquniya Sharh by Ibn Uthaymeen a good starting book?
No. Not because it's particularly bad, but no, it's not a good starting book. Read Al-Madkhal by Tariq Abdullah. Or start by Ta'liqat al-Athariyya by Ali al-Halabi, who just recently passed away, and then go to Al-Madkhal by Al-Madkhal ila Ulum al-Hadith by Tariq Abdullah. You'll get a lot more out of it.
Okay, so what's the main issue with Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen?
Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen is not from Ahl Hadith.
Okay, fair enough. Okay. If a hadith is sahih in chain, is it necessary for its content to be sahih too? That one is going to be. How are you? Are you up for a while? I think that one, this one's going to take a while to answer.
The person's image is hilarious.
It's nice كفية يا أخي.
So the short answer for this is that this is a wrong question. In terms of the way that the scholars of hadith actually operate, is that a hadith is not authentic until it's authentic. Because a hadith is referring to the whole thing, the sanad and the matan. Now, if your question is it possible for there to be a chain that has reliable transmitters in it and is connected, and yet still the content be incorrect? And yes, that is correct. This can happen, and it's because someone has not, even though they're reliable, they've not properly retained the information, and hence they make a mistake in it. And the whole science of ilal is based on this concept. And the best, easiest book for al-ilal to begin with is by our own, one of the greatest muhaddithun, Imam Muslim in Kitab al-Tamyiz. His whole book is based on this, right? You have reliable transmitters transmitting something, but this particular issue, they may have not properly retained it, so they made a mistake in it. So yeah, I think that roughly covers the
system. So basically, the system is there to solve those issues as well. System can filter out mistakes of reliable narrators.
Yeah, because everyone makes mistakes. This is what Imam Muslim says. He said, ليس من شرط ناقل الخبر أن لا يخطئ. Right?
Now, it's very important to keep in mind that just because the hadith is authentic, excuse me, it's important to keep in mind that you can't just go around rejecting everything you don't like, because there's a possibility that there may be an issue. You can't, that's something that you cannot do.
This is what Imam Muslim says. He says, فليس من ناقل خبر فليس من ناقل خبر وحامل أثر من السلف الماضين إلى زماننا وإن كان من أحفظ الناس وأشدهم توقيا وإتقانا لما يحفظ وينقل إلا والغلط والسهو ممكن في حفظه ونقله. He said that there is not a single person, except even if they're the most reliable person, except that it is possible for them to make a mistake. And that's the idea of it. And which is why you have ilm al-ilal. Which is why you don't simply look at a chain and see reliable, it's authentic. No, you have to study it. Yeah. Which is why you have books like al-Bukhari and Muslim and whatnot. Yeah, Kitab al-Tamyiz, that's the name of the book, Kitab al-Tamyiz. This is the publication of Abdul Qadir al-Muhammadi. It's a decent publication.
This is a fun question. Does a source being earlier mean that it's more authentic by default? Okay, so here's the thing, guys. Just because, okay, so let's say a hadith is in Muwatta Malik, and then you have a hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari. Is it necessary for every hadith in Muwatta Malik to be more reliable than hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari? Well, remember, Malik isn't quoting Rasulullah directly, and Bukhari isn't quoting Rasulullah directly. These are just when these hadiths were compiled in these specific books. However, you will often find narrations by Bukhari that are connected. Well, actually, that's just how it usually is. They're connected directly to the eyewitness that met the Prophet ﷺ. And on the other hand, you'll have reports by Malik in which he's narrating from his sheikh, for example, which isn't connected. Or Malik himself is saying, I heard. Or balagana, we were told of this, and it's not connected. So keep in mind that when this question is being asked, does a source being earlier mean that it is more authentic by default? The source is the companion himself, or the eyewitness, the earliest possible source, not the author of the book. Yes, it's important to know who the author is, but ultimately the source is the person who's actually telling you what's going on. Anything you want to add, Akhi?
No, it's perfect. I mean, there's a difference between the source and the book. Yes, the source being earlier means it's more authentic, but just because a book is earlier doesn't mean it's more authentic. And huge difference. So yeah, good تفريق جيد يعني.
Barakallah feek. Oh, okay. Check this out. I've heard quite a bit of criticism against Sheikh Al-Albani. Is it valid criticism or just spewing hate? I'd like to say that most of what you hear is hatred. I think that's the most of it. Anything you want to add?
Well, I genuinely don't know the type of criticism they've heard, so I cannot answer. But a lot of the criticism is hate and lack of understanding. A lot, and some of it's valid. Sheikh Al-Albani has mistakes and certain things we disagree with him on, like any other person that has ever existed and spoke about knowledge in the history of Islam. And there's things that we disagree on. And I think that some issues of his methodology in approaching hadith are wrong. But most of what you hear about him, against him, are people that have worse methodologies than him. They dislike. Our problem with him sometimes is that he authenticates something that's weak. Their problem with him is that he weakens things that they think are authentic that are actually weak. That's their issue, right?
Yep.
Because at the same time, in the same breath that they attack Sheikh Nasir, they love a Suyuti. Someone else. So it shows that it's simply based on hate. Yeah, they dislike him.
For those that aren't aware, Suyuti is not the best person to go to for hadith gradings, due to extreme lenience.
He salvages fabricated hadith. Yeah.
No. Okay, let's see. Okay. Okay, here's a technical one. If Sahih hadiths are not 100% true, how do we distinct between false and true?
What does that even mean?
He means authentic
we're
chains.
saying it's true. If it's Sahih, we're saying it's true.
He's saying authentic chains. He's saying if
you're referring to if not every single thing that a reliable person transmits is authentic, how do we distinguish between it? We distinguish it through it using ilm al-ilal, which is based on four premises. There's four premises to ilm al-ilal. To ascertain the historicity of the source, to ascertain the validity of it in transmission, to ascertain the soundness of its content and the soundness of its form. استقامة الحديث رواية واستقامة الحديث so in Arabic استقامة الحديث سندا استقامة السند رواية واستقامة السند وجودا واستقامة المتن معنى واستقامة المتن مبنى. This is what علم العلل is based on, these four things.
Here's a technical one. What if a scholar said about a hadith sahih and another said about the same hadith weak? Which one should we believe? Well, when that occurs, we just follow the evidence. As annoying as it sounds, one will have to look into it and analyze the report and come to a conclusion. And then we have the issue of what do we do when we're not at that level, which is quite annoying, and which is why I suggest everyone just get into it instead of asking questions like that. Just get into it and learn it. So the reason
Muslim solution
that works. So here's the thing, guys. The reason I got into Islamic knowledge is because I wanted to know why are authentic hadiths seen as authentic. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm actually in this position, which I never really thought I'd ever be in, with a channel with, alhamdulillah, a relatively large following, is because I just focused on trying to figure this out. Why do we follow these hadiths and why do we accept them as authentic? And it's ajib. It's one question will lead you to another, and it's a wonderful science.
ولسان حال فريد خلت الديار فسدت من غير مسودي ومن الشقاء تفردي بالسؤددي.
Let's carry on. Let's carry on. If two hadiths contradict each other, which should we follow?
To authentic a hadith. So if they're actually both authentic, they probably don't contradict each other. They probably conflict with each other. And there's a difference between contradiction and something that conflicts. If something is simply conflicting and not contradicting, which if they're authentic, they're not going to be contradicting, they'll be conflicting, then you see what the scholar says about how to reconcile them. And Ibn Khuzaymah says, I dare anyone to give me two ahadith that contradict each other, and I'll reconcile between them.
Not too many examples that are hard to reconcile, alhamdulillah. So one example that comes to mind is there's a report in which Aisha is speaking about how long Rasulullah was in Mecca. I think she said 10 years, and Ibn Abbas was asked and he said 13 years. How do we reconcile that? They had different opinions. Simple as that. A report can be attributed to a Sahabi and they'd have an opinion. They share what they know about the world. They share what they know about Rasulullah, and the other companion would share something else. The same thing with prayers, about whether Rasulullah prayed a sunnah after Asr, if I'm not mistaken. Help me out here, Abdullah. Praying sunnah after Asr? Okay. So there's a difference of opinion about that. So a companion would say he did, and another companion would say that he didn't. You reconcile that by assuming that one companion saw him doing it and the other companion didn't. It's as simple as that. This is an interesting question.
You can't say I witnessed someone not doing this.
Yeah.
I witnessed him not stealing, Yani.
Yeah. What would be the Sunni grading? What would be the Sunni grading be concerning Al-Kulaini? The answer to that is, I'm going to be very fair. Majhul. He would be anonymous in status. Actually, I think if I'm being fair, I do think that he did tamper with a report, at least one report. I do have an example of one report that I do believe that he tampered with. So I think I would have to say that I do believe Al-Kulaini is a liar. You won't find any statements by early scholars of Hadith, Sunni Hadith, that speak about Al-Kulaini. But I have written an article, which I will have to link in the description. The issue is I'm going to have to watch this video and take notes about what we're supposed to stick in the description. It's getting annoying, but yeah.
Let's make the this question the last question. The one, I mean, the next question, let's make it the last question because my phone is going to die.
Okay. All right, let's see.
And please let it be good, Danny.
Inshallah, I'll get you a good one. I'll get you one that's going to make you sweat and stutter.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to find one. Oh, where is it? Akhi, this one's for you, Akhi. This one's for you, but it disappeared. Oh, okay, here you go. Yalla, tafaddal, ya feminist.
Okay. So, the questioner wants to speak about Akram and Nedwi's book.
Do women transmitters carry the same weight as men? And what are the criteria of transmitting hadith? Be careful, bro. Be careful.
Okay, the answer to your question is that yes, what matters is your level of retention, right? Women transmit in every aspect of knowledge. There's not a specific lane that they must, stay into, right? Like stay in their lane. Women transmit in every, aspect of knowledge. We know this because the female sahabiyat were transmitting on everything, and the female tabi'iyat were learning and transmitting on almost everything as well. So they transmitted like men do. There's something normal. Um, uh, and to answer your question that you didn't ask but you should have asked about muhaddithat, is that there is a huge deception about
Oh,
muhaddithat. Akram al-Nadwi published. There's a book published in English in 2007, I think, and there is a honestly, ya akhi, there is a problem with portraying female transmitters of hadith as scholars of hadith. Because if you're using muhaddith as the way that Ibn Hibban and Muslim used muhaddith, then there is absolutely, it's not a word of praise, because you could be a liar or munkar al hadith and still be a muhaddith in the terminology of Imam Muslim and Ibn Hibban and others. Yet, if you're using muhaddith as we understand it, then it's a matter of praise and it means proficiency in certain sciences. And I don't think any example that can ever be mentioned in the history of Islam can actually be clarified or can be categorized as a muhadditha in this sense. And it is utmost, dishonesty to read al-Dhahabi about saying something sami'at huduran about a 3-year-old or a 2-year-old, meaning they simply attended a hearing at the age of 2, and call it studying a book. This is a matter of dishonesty.
this
And
happened. This happened where?
in Akram al-Nadwi's book on muhaddithat.
Okay. So in Akram al-Nadwi's book Muhaddithat, he included the girl who was 3 years old as a muhadditha. And you're frozen. I think subhanallah, let's take this as a sign and end this video right here. All right. Barakallah fiqh, Akhi Abdullah, Jazakallah khairan for being on the show, for sharing your thoughts on the subject. The topic of ilm al-hadith, objectivity or impartiality in ilm al-hadith is a major one. There's a lot more to say, and inshallah I promise to deliver more in the future. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys found this entertaining and beneficial. Akhi Abdullah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To the rest of you guys, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.